Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, don't just watch, because the conversations here are very interesting. Wherever you are, if it's morning time, welcome to the show. We're going to have our usual conversation here. But today, I'm not going to be I'm not taking in any phone calls. It's a video that I made 2 years ago about Pan-Africanism. And I know for some of you that are just now seeing my new videos here, it will confuse you, but don't be confused. I'm a mysterious man. I'm a man of many, many different layers. So just kick back and watch. This video that I'm about to share with you from 2 years ago, like I said, I made it talking to an all-African audience about Pan-Africanism. And the questions that I'm asking, I'm still asking those same questions to black people as well. The people that talk about Pan-Africanism. So I want people to understand, I'm not here to try to, separate who is who. But if you say you are about something, know that you will be challenged. You will be challenged to prove it. But this video here will help you truly understand what I believe in and what I don't believe in. So I'm going to play the video here.
Yeah, none of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Children have to go back to the roots. I'm telling you now, the truth, telling you, yeah, the truth. You have to go back to the roots, go to the roots. Yeah, man, this is Benjamin out of the Smiling Coast, West Africa, Gambia, representing for the one and only Abu, the big man you don't know, the Soninke warrior, the man that brings the truth. Soninke warrior, the sign of enlightenment. The Soninke warrior, the righteous and the true African. Abu, reveal the truth to them, no matter how them try to run from it, because none of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Yes, we have to dig back the roots, yeah. Fire!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me again. Something was wrong with my headpiece. It's echoing, so I'm not sure if that's the same thing you are hearing. But today, I'm going to talk about the reason why Pan-Africanism, like many people would say, uniting Africa, why it would never work. I'm going to give you my reasons. And just like I've written in the title, some of the main problems that we're having. Give me 1 second here. Let me see. If the sound quality is good, please make sure you give me a thumbs up here. Let me know that the sound quality is working for you. Let's see again. External. Okay, how's the sound? Oh, you can hear me fine? I think one person said they can hear me. All right, well, thank you. So I'm going to proceed here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are new to this platform, please make sure you share this video to the rest of your friends so they can come join you over here, for this great conversation that we're going to be having this evening. Because, things like this, conversations like this is very necessary amongst us Africans, because we love coming out talking about Africa must unite, Pan-Africanism, but then we forget about the real obstacles of Pan-Africanism. Right now, if you look at in your various African countries, if you are honest with yourself, because if we say Africa uniting, remember, we are talking about Black Africa. Because I know you guys are not even talking about northern part of Africa. Because the northern part of Africa, I don't think they even consider themselves, as being the same as the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. Because as you can see, the way, Black Africans are treated in North Africa, that, like, I would come to that in another video, because, it's ridiculous, the self-delusion that us Africans are living under. So, in the title, I mentioned tribalism as being one of the problems. And when I say being the problem is, in order for people to unite, they have to unite under a common goal. Now you tell me, you look at African countries, for example, especially West Africa. Look at the politics. What is the politics centered around? Because it's a numbers game, right? So it is centered around tribal lines. And, there's nothing wrong with that, right? People would say there's nothing wrong with that. But if we're talking about national interest, national unity, now you have to start weighing your tribal allegiance to national allegiance, right? Because your cultural beliefs and what another man believes might be different, but you have to share the same environment, the same country, the same national interest, because the resources, when it comes down to politics, let's just be frank, it is about resources. Who is going to bring the resources to the people? And generally the tribe that is the majority tries to dictate that move. And we've seen that happen in places like Rwanda, for example. The outcome wasn't good, right? But that's not how these things always end up. And tribe is not the only thing that holds people back. People have to sit down and start talking and explain these things to one another, to know that, hey, it is totally okay for you to be who you feel like you want to be. But national interests should definitely trump tribal interests. But people are very, very sensitive about this tribal talk. Very, very sensitive. In most countries, Africans, because now that Africans are living amongst the West, in the Western world, many Africans feel like, okay, now we're very civilized, because they've seen how, the impact of discrimination. They've seen the impact of discrimination, because now you live in a Western world where, okay, your tribe doesn't matter. Here, the tribal line is along skin color. So now the guy that you didn't used to belong, like you guys didn't see eye to eye in Africa, now you belong to the same tribe. And you see how you are both mistreated based on skin color. This is why people start screaming about Africa must unite. But in Africa, is this unity a reality? This is the question we should be asking. Unity cannot come if the African themselves, us Africans, don't value what, being an African is. We cannot pass that on to other people. You know, we like talking about how great our tribes are. But what did our tribes do? Talk about it. What did your tribe do? What sort of civilization did your tribe do? Come up with. You know, I'm not saying nobody's tribe is important. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But if you are going to talk about Pan-Africanism, think about the people who tribe trumps everything. Then you come to religion. Religion, the God that they serve. Because most Africans identify along religious lines. You look at even, for example, you know, like the struggles all over Africa, right? Like Nigeria, for example. They have Boko Haram over there. Their struggle is to bring Islamic law. It's not to unite people under an African banner, what many of you would call Pan-Africanism. That's not what it is. And the ones that say that they are educated, even though every now and again they would align themselves with religion when it's convenient, and when it's not, they would step away from it. I mean, these people, they have no principle, right? They don't know where they stand. So every decision that they take, it has to come from the Western world, from white people. And I'm going to play a clip here that I'm going to analyze. It is the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame, you know, talked about how African leaders can never take decision on their own without consulting with Europe. With Europe. So that makes me believe that, you know, Europe still owns Africa, because there's no move. They cannot make any move without the Europeans. And that's a fact. So you have the Europeans, you have religious differences, cultural differences, which is along tribal lines. It's a whole big mess. It's a whole big mess. Because this is all psychological, people. Like, don't see it as something that is negative. Like, just sit there, ask yourself, you know, about the pros and cons of opening yourself up to what is possible, the possibilities that are out there. You know, people like, some Africans like to say, oh, our ancestors did this and this and that. Don't forget that. Our ancestors also sold human beings. They sold human beings as well. So we cannot just come and say, oh, these people were great thinkers. And I'm not talking about everyone. Let me play Paul Kagame's talk here with the Europeans so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So people, let's listen to this one here.
Hello, thanks very much for joining us for this special edition of Talking Europe. Coming to you today from Brussels and the European Development Days. Now, this is an event that's known as the Davos of Development, bringing together people involved in...
So, people, I want you to listen to the conversation here. Ask yourself, how come your president, your African president, doesn't talk like this when they're in front of white people? By the way, this is Paul Kagame, you know, the president of Rwanda. he came to power through his own struggles. He marched into Kigali, freed his people, because as you guys know, back in 94, there was a genocide in Rwanda where the Hutus and Tutsis, took up arms against each other, and many Rwandans lost their lives in this. And all Africans did was point fingers at Europeans, white people, and say, how come white people didn't come and intervene? So we don't want to hold ourselves accountable at all, right? But Paul Kagame right here did not wait for white people. He did not point the fingers at anybody. He knows that this was their problem, not even African problem, because us Africans, we like to say, oh, this is the African problem, when in fact we know, we don't believe in that. We believe that we all have different countries, different cultures, different interests. So it's okay for us to embrace those interests, but we can still work together and try to further our agendas without selling our souls, without selling our people. But Mr. Kagame here, the conversation that he's about to have, I want you people to listen carefully. Weigh this against your president in your African nation. Because Rwanda is a modern nation. You can go look it up. In fact, I'm going to feature their nation on one of my broadcasts to show you how far Rwanda has come. But it would also let you know that a nation cannot move forward without a strong leader. Instead of, now you have a leader that you can compare to your African leader. You don't have to point fingers to say, oh, this is what is happening in Britain, because most of you are still, you have the colonial mindset. The white man's eyes is colder than the black man's eyes. It doesn't matter what type of eyes the black man makes, it's not good enough for you. So before you look all the way to the US, Singapore, and all these non-black countries, compare your leader to Paul Kagame, a man who just 25 years ago, he was a rebel in the jungle. And he wasn't your typical African rebel group where they were out, to kill the innocent, like what was happening in places like Sierra Leone and Liberia, or even in Uganda next door, Congo, where it is African themselves, the rebel groups that come out to say they are here to liberate the people. That never happens. The people become their victim. But look around Africa. Paul Kagame today, he is one of the few leaders that we can say actually marched with his men from the forest and fought for the rights of the innocent, liberated the country, became the president, and followed through with the promise that he made to the people. This is what we need in Africa. This is what we need. But all these other little things that we bring, like the tribal lines, religious lines, cultural differences, it's not going to unite Africa. It's not going to unite Africa. And looking at the white man as God is not going to unite Africa. Because this is the fact. There is nothing. Things don't happen in Africa if the white governments don't approve of it. It doesn't happen, people. This is a fact. This is why we're still stagnant. This is why Africa is not moving an inch. Because all people want to do is, incompetent people want to become the leaders. The incompetent want to become the leaders. And you know, they're so quick to say, oh, we're talking about term limits. Okay, like for example, Paul Kagame here. People, do you think if you have a workhorse, like a man like him, like the Rwandan people have today, all the things that he's doing, would you ever want him to step down? You've answered that question. But you look at places like Gambia, where I come from, even their politics, you know, it's all about denial. But I'm going to play something here that our people can learn from. Without even looking at the Queen and her people, we can learn from our own kind.
All aspects of development from here in Europe and from across the world. Now, as a combined entity, the European Union is in fact the world's biggest single contributor to international development. It totaled over 74 billion euros last year. Now, in this programme today, I'm very pleased to be speaking to the man who's in charge of it all, if you will, the European Union's Development Commissioner, Neven Mimica. Hello, thanks for being with us.
Hello.
And we've also got with us in the studio today the President of Rwanda since the year 2000, Paul Kagame. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to start off, you know, quite general for our audience. The topics here at the European Development Days are absolutely vast. As the EU prepares for a new commission,
And people, have you noticed Paul Kagame, he is very slender. He's very skinny guy. So you know that this man did not come there to party. Like, look at most African leaders, they are fat. You know, they are really, really fat. While the people are starving, the poor people that they claim to be representing, those people are starving. But you look at Mr. Kagame, you know that this man is about business. This man did not come there to be playing around. And people, before I forget, I am going to open up the lines today as well. I tried opening the line yesterday, but many people did not call in. So nobody tried. So if you have a Skype, you know, go ahead, activate your Skype, and as soon as I open the lines, you can go ahead and call in and tell us what you think about what is being discussed here today. We'll continue with this.
come in, new development budgets and aims. What, Commissioner Mimica, would you say are the key development goals for the European Union?
Yeah, the global UN Sustainable Development Goals agenda might look very complicated, very interlinked with the number 17 goals to be achieved by 2030. But when you look into the depths and the very structure and the very final ultimate goal of this sustainability network, actually it's about poverty, eradicating poverty. This is a focus. This is the first level of sustainable development engagement for the European Union, but for all other.
All right, people, you hear what this guy is saying, right? So pay close attention to what this guy is saying, because you know these Europeans really think they own Africa. People, they think they own Africa. I'm not talking about just the the regular citizens of Europe. I'm talking about their elites. This is why African countries have to wean themselves of this European so-called aid. This is colonialism 2.0. You know, back in the days, they have, like, it costs a lot more money to colonize territories in Africa because they have to be physically present, to quote unquote keep the black people in check. You see what I'm saying? But now, you don't have to physically be present to control the African, because they've controlled our leaders' mind. This is what you people should be looking at, because when our leaders are sitting in front of Europeans, it's not a conversation. They lecture us like little children. People, look at our leaders. When they go in front of Europeans, the Europeans just lecture them. It's not like a give and take conversation. But you will see exactly what I'm trying to get you to see here.
Countries in the world, because this Sustainable Development Goals agenda is universal agenda. It's equally important for everybody. We have to pass from eradicating poverty by increasing economic or GDP growth only to the level where we have sustainable economic growth, where we have sustainable social development and sustainable environmental development. So it's about sustainability of our growth. When it comes to sustainability, we are still all developing countries, so we all have a work to do to reach the level of sustainability of our development.
A work in progress, perhaps. President Kagame, your country has received a lot of foreign aid, particularly, of course, to help it move on from the 1994 genocide. It's obviously a big question, but what broadly has foreign development brought to Rwanda?
Foreign development has brought many things to Rwanda. In fact, from the time of humanitarian emergency situation, they filled that huge gap that was there, but to address those emergencies. And alongside that, and after we had gone through the emergency situation, a lot of assistance came in for our development. And development in this case is a responsibility of two sides. One is we ourselves, the recipient side, but also the donors. And we all come together to make sure that we address poverty that is experienced, or was experienced in my country, but experienced across our continent. And on our side, we've really got to make sure that we put the necessary, the right infrastructure in place to actually utilize this sense.
So, people, do you see how Paul Kagame is addressing these questions? Just imagine if he were one of our other African leaders. They would be sitting there talking like a little slave, smiling, giggling, They wouldn't even, it's like begging the white people. But Paul Kagame, he is very sure of himself. He is sure of his ideas. And the ideas are working in his country. I'm going to allow him to continue telling us.
Assistance that comes our way to make the impact on the ground, to enable the country to grow its economy, to also make that growth inclusive, and continue the partnership between the recipient and the donor countries is extremely important. And we have to be looking at not just the volume of what is flowing, but also the quality of the outcomes.
Now, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2016, you said that it was time for your country to set a deadline to end its dependency on foreign aid. That's not happened yet. Rwanda is still receiving a lot of development funds. I think it was over $1 billion in 2016. Have you fixed a deadline as such?
Not really. I think sometimes people just misinterpret what is being said for various reasons. But the bottom line here for us is, can we utilize aid that is given to us properly to the point that we build the foundation necessary?
So, I understand every nation, even like Rwanda here. Rwanda, they received aid for nation building. But the only differences between Rwanda and the other backward African nations is the leadership. Rwanda is clear proof to you and I that a nation in Africa can be built from the aid that they received. Only if the aid is used for what it's been given for. But look at places like, for example, places like Gambia, for example. They depend on aid. But 60%, the country is in debt, like 60% of the economy, the country is pretty much 60% being owned by IMF, because whatever they get, they pay back to IMF. But the aid that is coming, what is it being spent on? Luxurious cars. You're buying nice luxury cars. You don't even have the roads to drive them on. You would see a Gambian politician who would steal tons of money from the poor people and build a huge mansion right amongst those poor people. That is poor mentality, people. They would build a mansion in a slum. So it's like you don't even have the decency to understand that, okay, before I fight for building a mansion for myself amongst the poor people here, why don't I fight and fix the road? So their own street would have potholes. Potholes. In their own street, like I've seen politicians where they have huge mansions, right? Right next to it is a dumping site. Right next to it. You see this around Africa. Because we elect people who don't care. They are greedy. They just like to give us sound bites. That's it. Sound bites, but they don't have ideas. Because when it comes to nation building, you need people with ideas. I know the topic is mostly about the unity of Africa, and that's what it's still on, because the mindset of people varies from one territory to another. You have most territories in Africa, most countries in Africa, the general public they don't believe in hard work. They want a God to open up the sky and drop things. This is why when they see white people, they are very, very excited, because they see white people as gods. The lip would deny it, but the action says completely different. Because when Africans have problems, African countries, when they have problems, who do they call upon? Who do they call upon? They are not calling on other African nations. Think about it. Even if there's natural disaster next door to African nations, we can't even rescue each other. This is a problem. It's a disgrace. I saw like Tanzania was able to help in the disaster that happened in East Africa sometime, I think, few months back. I read something about that. That's very unusual. Usually it's the Europeans, the white people, the same white people that we claim not to trust. But we cannot do anything without sitting in front of them. So let's say we like talking about Pan-Africanism. Like, let's say the father of Pan-Africanism, Marcus Garvey. Did you know that Marcus Garvey have never stepped foot in Africa, in the African soil? It's not because he didn't want to. Because the white people at the time said no. He cannot be allowed to go there. He applied to go to Liberia. The black president of Liberia turned him down. Said no, he cannot come over there. Okay? Every country at the time, you can go read up on this. They didn't allow him. So now, do you think people that are saying Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanism, if we send our representatives now for them to go ask white people if we can unite, what do you think they're going to tell them? These questions here are going to get more intense, but let's keep going.
For our people to keep doing what they ought to do, that falls within their aspirations, and be able to stand on their own feet. I think the principal standard, as we know it, in our case, at least that is our ambition, is to make sure that as we get more aid, we keep needing less and less aid.
Mm-hmm. So it's a deadline that will fix itself, perhaps.
Really, yes, you can't really put a date on this and say by this day I will. No, but that it's a kind of ambition and a framework which you have to operate in. But it's not a switch on and off kind of situation.
Commissioner Mimica, at the EU level, there's something new called the Africa-EU Alliance, which we're told involves a shift from aid in the traditional sense to encouraging investment. Now, private entities were always able to make investments in any country if they wanted to. What's different about this?
Yes, Europe and Africa are really two twin continents, I would say, and there are a lot of good reasons and arguments to explain why we are so interlinked politically, economically, in investment, in trade, in many other areas. But we are really developing a strong partnership between Europe and Africa. But
so it's about changing the relationship.
But what we wanted to do with launching the idea of alliance on sustainable investments and jobs is to strengthen the economic dimension of our
people. Have you noticed? You would never see these EU elites beating around the bush in front of an African leader. But have you noticed? He cannot say what he really wants to say in front of Paul Kagame, because Paul Kagame is no joke. He's no joke. He's a man of principle, man of conduct. So he's sitting right in front of him, looking at him dead in the eye. You know, this is what they say, people. When the cat is away, the mice can play around. But when the cat shows up, you don't see any mice. So that's what's happening. Think about it. If this were your African president, the country where you came from, how would he or she have answered this question?
Alliance of our partnership, and therefore we would like to move much more towards the support of a private sector investment in creating new jobs in Africa. But it's not only about creating jobs, it's also about employability, improving the educational and health system. Human development is so important, as important as employment. Employability is equally important. That's what we are focusing on.
And when we're talking about private or investment coming into this, can the EU be sure that that money will be going in favour of the same goals as the public money would be from the EU?
We have developed a strong dialogue with our partners, especially in Africa, and all our development projects are really geared by the sense of ownership that we would like to develop in our partner countries, because you cannot succeed in eradicating poverty and in meeting and reaching the development goals if there is not a strong political leadership, clear political vision, and a strong ownership of the development, economic and political processes in the country. So we really want to do it not as a European input or European recipe for the development projects in.
So this man, he's not being honest. But let's hear what Kagame gotta say.
Partner countries, but to have it as a
Rwanda is often held up as an example of a country that, of course, partly through this development support, has seen greater economic growth, stability. However, recently some social indicators in Rwanda have been dropping off. For example, some World Bank data shows that secondary school enrollment is dropped down to 36%, and 38% of children aged under 5 are said to be in chronic malnutrition, which is among one of the highest levels in the world.
And progress on them in the next few years, in a short time. And already the mechanisms and the money and everybody is ready to go. We are actually working on it as we speak. So it's not that anything has gone down. No, it's that everything almost has been down. We're just trying to lift things up.
So people, have you also noticed for the progress of Rwanda, have you been paying attention? One of the things that Mr. Kagame is doing, the religious aspect of Rwanda. He is now replacing, you know, these religious houses like mosque, you know, church. I think some churches, he is turning them into, you know, buildings that are more productive for the people, and it's going very well over there. So this is why I mentioned the religious aspect of it. It's not just one particular type of religion, because I know some of you cannot look past yourself, but there are other people that believe in things that you don't believe in. But look past that. Open your mind to, you know, what other people are saying, and weigh that against your belief system. Because Rwanda is clear proof to all of us that this development to bring Africans together can work. But the only way it would work is for people to follow in this footpath. I'm going to share another video of him addressing African leaders. Here you would clearly see that African leaders are puppets. But let me find that video for you, so you can also have an idea of what I'm saying. Let me make sure.
How in the world does a fast food chicken restaurant run out of...
Sorry people, that was a wrong video. That was the Popeyes fried chicken. People killed each other over fried chicken. Sorry about that. We're on a serious subject here. All right.
I followed what was being discussed for the short time I've been here, and I think there are good points being made about conflicts, the causes, and possible way forward in resolving them. But of course, what is very common is there will be old conflicts and old causes of the conflicts. There will also be new kinds of conflicts, as has been said.
So as you can see, this is your African leaders sitting over there. That's Obasanjo, Thabo Mbeki, Kabuka, whoever that is. But it's prominent African leaders. And Mr. Kagame here, listen carefully to what he says about Africa.
And possibly new causes as well. But what has been mentioned by the panelists that is important, the constant should be the kind of politics, the kind of leadership, the governance in place so that these old or emerging causes or conflicts can be resolved. This is key. And another way to look at it also and raise a question which we must answer is, for so long we've discussed conflicts, causes of conflicts, and actually have quite a good idea as to what is needed for such a conflict to be resolved. Now, the question is, if we have analyzed conflicts and the causes, if we really have a good idea what all this constitutes, then what? So it comes, therefore, to the point that the leaders, therefore, should be there to deal with these problems. And here I'm not even proposing that there is one leader who can resolve conflicts alone, or that there is even a silver bullet for these conflicts. Therefore, it's the management of all these processes and what we have identified to be the root causes. But of course, when it comes to Africa, I'm sure.
See, people, you understand where Kagame is coming from. This guy, he was, he's a true soldier. He didn't come to power like these other leaders that, like, the Western powers picked and tricked the people in an election. No, this man came to power, by marching from the jungles with his troops. I'm talking about through the barrel of the gun. He wasn't your ordinary, the ragtag, African rebels we had in the 90s, the RUFs, in Sierra Leone, Charles Taylor, where the innocent people were the ones that, the civilians were the victims. With Kagame, he came there to liberate the people. So now, the way he's talking to them, he's letting them know, look, I am not one of these puppets. I'm just letting you know, okay, fine. You guys want to talk about the conflicts in Africa with white people? Fine, okay. Now you go tell them about it, and then what? It's a good question. See, he's about the action. He's not about talking. He doesn't have a master. Long story short. So he's giving it to them, straight chaser. And if you're just joining me, this is a video that I made 2 years ago, speaking to an all-African audience about why Pan-Africanism will not work in Africa. So I use Paul Kagame as an example to show how his approach is, and that is not the popular approach. So my suggestion is, if we truly want Pan-Africanism to work, we African leaders have to adopt his kind of mindset. I'm not saying they all have to think like him, but how can we have leaders, who, they are living lavishly, living large, and the majority of the population is living in squalor and poverty? That's something to think about, especially if they're receiving money, and this money, even quote unquote, they say aid, but it's always paid back. So I think they just want to make it sound fancy. Other places receive it, they call it a loan, but that's neither here or there.
Many people in this audience will have made the same observations. I think we must take responsibility and accept our failures in dealing with these matters.
For those of you that's been following me for quite some time, what have I always been emphasizing? for Africa. Taking responsibility. This is what I talk about constantly. Taking responsibility. Because Africans don't want to take
For
responsibility.
example, relating to what President Obasanjo has just said, on the case of Boko Haram, or you can use that for many other cases. For me, when I'm watching on television, and I find our leaders who should have been working together all along to address these problems that commonly affect their countries, wait until they are invited to go to Europe to sit there and just
People, did you see what I was talking about? That's exactly what Mr. Kagame just said. And mind you, Mr. Kagame, he has first-hand experience to these things. It's not hearsay or things he just read about. He is there with these people. He is one of the leaders. This is why we should be paying attention more to the characters of our leaders. You know, looking at, you know, what ideas do they have, instead of, you know, you focusing on, oh, is this guy from my tribe? Oh, is this leader part of my religion? Or is this leader from my region? You know, a lot of different crazy things happen. A lot of crazy things happen. Imagine having a leader like we have in Africa today, in many of the nations. They cannot make decisions without going to Europe, just like Mr. Kagame have said. Imagine a big country like Nigeria, huge country like Nigeria, over 200 million people. They cannot make any move without seeing the Europeans. So colonialism is not over yet. It's not over because we have weak leaders. So we must know about them. Maybe they are not aware that they are weak. But sitting in programs like this, sensitizing one another, maybe, just maybe, that can help change some minds. And if you're just joining me, or if you've been watching, this is the Skype here. You can go find me on Skype and be ready if you want to call in and tell us, you know, what's on your mind. We'll continue here.
You know, it's like they are made to sit down and address their problems. Why does anybody wait for that? What image does?
Like I said, this video was from 2 years ago, so don't look for the Skype. I'm not taking it. But as usual, when you're speaking these truth bombs, you're dropping them in amongst an all-African audience. On that day, none of them called. No one is going to call. But if it's about light subject, entertainment, then people want to call. You know, because when you talk about tribes, religion, then people start getting all sensitive. So watching this video would help you understand my videos that you are seeing, you know, why I talk about things the way I do. Straight, you know, it's not like I'm on someone's side or nobody's side. You know, I just drop it like I see it.
Even give about us, about Africa. In fact, the image it gives is that we are not there to even address these problems. We are there for a photo opportunity. We are happy to sit there in Paris with the president of France and address and just talk about addressing problems. It doesn't make sense that our leaders cannot get
themselves together to address problems affecting our people. It doesn't make sense. Of course, I'm saying this painfully on the other hand that but I look forward for the time when I can be like the two former presidents. I think they are more free to say things than I do. Being where they are and me being where I am. So I tend to remain with some reservations about what I have to say because, but I think there is that serious problem. African leaders, we don't need to be invited anywhere to go and address our problems without first inviting ourselves to come together to tell each other the actual truth that we must tell each other about our serious problems. So, I mean, again, look at the problem of South Sudan, indeed. The first problem was about this country and the people there wanting to be independent. They got independence. Now that turned into a problem. How? So you have one war being fought, waged to be independent, then you have to fight another when you have achieved independence. Just fighting among themselves. Why? So some of these underlying root causes should and could have been addressed by the leaders there. Whatever happened, whoever was wrong, that's not the issue. It is still the responsibility of leaders. If they can't resolve the matters themselves, why not? Why not call upon neighbors to say, come and help? We have a problem here. Maybe there is a problem between the president and the vice president. And if they can't resolve it, and each one thinks he's the one who is right and the other is wrong, and they are going to divide the army and government and everybody else to go on either side and start fighting. But I think in between the time that starts and when it actually happens, something can be done. But it has to be leaders to work towards that and avoid the catastrophe that like we are seeing or have seen or that has already happened in South Sudan. But of course, the unfortunate part is that the most majority who suffer are the innocent people who have nothing to do with it. Women, children, and even many men are innocent in that situation. So this is, I'm not giving answers, probably I'm raising more questions than, or adding to others that have been raised.
People, do you understand how intelligent this man is? Here's a guy who understands what the African people need. Let me see what this guy said. Baja Mohammed. He said this president is an evil man. Well, you're entitled to your opinion. I mean, but the things that he's saying absolutely make sense. So people, now the Skype lines are open. You can call in. You can definitely call in and let us know what's on your mind. How come this man is better than you? Max Jami, I don't understand your question. You're asking me how come the man is better than me. I'm not sure how to answer that. But you're free to call in. So people, think about the topic that the things I've covered here so far. I'm not here to say that whatever belief system you have is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But you by now have an idea of what your leader is doing. The leader from your country, what are they doing when they're in front of their European masters? Because that's what I call it. Oh, I have some. Mr. Mohammed, that's fine. You're entitled to hold that opinion. But you see, for example, the mindset that somebody like Mr. Mohammed that is opposing Mr. Kagame here has, this is rampant all over Africa. This is the common form of thinking. So when you talk about Pan-Africanism, Africans uniting, that means that, right, we see each other as one people. Africans, do we move as one people, even in our various countries? Answer that question. Like currently, as we speak here, a little bit of problem that is ongoing in Gambia. The president, the current sitting president, invited the Fullers to visit him at the State House. This is a common practice in that country, where they would say, we're inviting such and such tribe. But back, like the president, he's invited the Sarahules before. I have even made videos about it. He's invited other groups. But he never, the opposition leader now, which is UDP's leader, Usainu Dabo, he tried to change it into a tribal issue. He's like, oh, he's inviting the Fullers, thinking that that's gonna help him. So why all of a sudden, you are pointing out a tribal group? You see what I'm saying? So that mindset, he knows that resonates with some of his people. Let me see here. Ibeto Nwabe. Africans can never have peace till they give Americans and Europeans their God. I totally agree with you. Totally. Yeah, Africans can never have peace till they give Americans and Europeans their God. And the Arabs. Well, you have to understand, my brother. For you to do good for yourself, for example, you have to see the inner God in you and believe in that. But if your God that you are supposedly serving doesn't look like you, that's going to be a problem. Because, just sit there when you're reading a book about God, for example, or they're preaching. Every human being, because when I meet people, I like asking questions. Their idea about God is, because when you're talking to people, they would be describing God in like a human form. Yes, this is because us human beings, we cannot define something with power outside of what looks like us. So we see God like a human form, but with bigger powers, like with endless powers. This is the interpretation of most people's idea about God. Okay, but that's fine. But if your interpretation of God doesn't look like you, and you're trying to connect with your God in a language that you don't even understand, you don't speak, that's gonna be a problem. That's what is called being foolish. Seriously. Let me see what some of these people are saying to each other. Man, stupid like a donkey. Well, it's really hard to try to say, to just base everything on on just the religious aspect of things. Like I said, there are many, many other factors, because Africans themselves do not love Africans. People, I don't think you are hearing what I'm saying. Africans do not love Africans. Because if you love yourself, for example, how can people treat you any type of way? Everywhere we look around, in Europe, you see Africans, you would see videos, Africans are the criminals, labeled as criminals, or Africans are the victims. You look around Asia, even all the way in India, they are beating Africans over there. You look around in the United States, the same thing. But we are refusing to sit down and ask ourselves the question, what is wrong? Why is things this way? Because the unity part, you need to get that out of your head. Because I'm telling you, I'm giving you an example of a very tiny country, Gambia. The people that they are calling the Fulanis that the president invited, now they are calling them, referring to them as foreigners. Go figure. So if you can describe another tribe who they are possibly, they are a native of that same territory, if you cannot tolerate them and calling them foreigners, how do you suppose they would accept people who are clearly defined? They clearly define themselves as being such and such. So that's the big problem. So that's where I say the tribalism comes into play, because every African country, it seems like, I would say most African countries you go to, what do you see? There's like a tribe that's usually the majority. The majority tribe generally is always the problem, because they tend to be the bullies. They try to bully the other smaller tribes, because the more the tribe is, the more they start feeling like they own the country, right? And I'm not saying that's how it is everywhere. And then you would have another tribe, which is the second majority, that would try to challenge them. That's what happened in Rwanda. The Hutus and the Tutsis. Because one group is the bully, the other one, they are just sort of like hypocritical, like whoever is in power, that's who they go with. So the Hutus and the Tutsis, things got really, really escalated to a point that they started killing one another. This is not the norm by any means. I want people to also understand that. The tribalism in most places doesn't generally get to this. But can they get to that? Of course, because we've seen them happen. So we cannot take that violence off the table. So when people don't identify as the same tribe, their interest is not going to be the same. So there goes Pan-Africanism out the door. There goes the Pan-Africanism out the door. And then you see Africans who are Muslims versus who are Christians. Yes, they would say, oh yeah, we have peace in certain places, but we cannot also deny that there are countries in Africa where people are actually killing each other over religious differences. They've taken up arms to kill each other over religious differences. So now, how can you unite those people? How is that possible? Because it's a belief system. You cannot just tell someone that what they believe, the God they believe, they serve, whatever, whether you like it or not, you cannot just all of a sudden expect them to drop that. So many Africans were born in this system of religious belief, whether it's about Christianity or about Islam. So, but nowadays, there are more few Africans. I would still use the word few because I want you to know religion is going strong in Africa. It's going very strong in Africa. I mean, some people might say there has been progress. Maybe because you're able to have a constructive, open-minded conversation with another African about the cons of religion doesn't necessarily mean religious belief is dropping in Africa. It's going really strong over there. It's going strong. So some educated people are now trying to bring common sense to the people. But as for now, people have to deal with that. So that right there, that is a factor that is not going to allow the unity of Africans. But let's say I would throw this theory to you and you think about it. Maybe, just maybe, is it in the African's nature not to want to unite? Because, in the United States, black people here, they share a common language, a common history, common circumstance, common culture. Because the moment they removed black people, Africans from the continent during slavery and bring them to the Caribbean island, United States of America, and even Europe, they distributed Africans all over the world. Africans were the first globalized merchandise, to be distributed all over the world. So I'll give the United States as an example, where Africans were stripped of who they are. They were stripped of their name, their norms, their mores, their religious beliefs. I mean, it's like completely erased anything African about them. So that went on for generations. The reason why I'm giving you this example is, if there was going to be unity, now we have a group of black people who have common language, common belief system, and still there is no unity. So maybe we should start looking deep at ourselves and take responsibility for what is happening on that continent. I mean, I'm not here to pick on anyone, but if you want to call in, like I said, here is the Skype handle. Feel free to call in. Tell us exactly what you think about, the things I've said here. If you agree or you disagree with me, because that's what discussion is about. I'm not trying to impose any type of ideas in your head, but I want you to look beyond your country's borders. Because in Africa, even to travel from country to country, it's really hard for native Africans. If you have an African passport, it is very difficult for the natives of Africa themselves. So if you cannot even freely move without being harassed, think about trying to spread what we're saying here. Right now, I guarantee you, these things that I'm saying Can you imagine if I were in Africa? What would have happened? If people disagree with me, they would want to settle it by physically harming me. Even though I'm not saying anything against anyone, but just to bring a different perspective of looking at things. So it's a place where scavengers are in charge. So for those of my black brothers and sisters in the diaspora, yes, if you want to migrate to Africa, by all means, you can. But to think that you're going to have a mass movement of changing the people's mind to the Pan-African thing, I'm not saying don't go for it, but good luck. Make sure you take all these factors into consideration. Because your idea is different from Boko Haram's idea. And they are Africans too. Their fight is not for the liberation of Nigerians in the Delta region who are being robbed of their wealth, who are suffering from environmental degradation. That's not what they are fighting against. No. They are fighting against other belief systems, Western education. They want to bring their own idea. So, like over here, I come and talk to people. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. You can take what I say, great. And you can also leave it alone. It's not going to hurt my feelings one bit. But religious person, people who are really into it, if you don't, let's say you don't accept what they are saying, you're like, nah. Even you don't have to say, I don't accept it. Just say, I gotta think about it. All of a sudden, they would hate you. But in reality, you should be able to think for yourself. But most Africans you meet, especially West Africa, you meet them, they cannot think for themselves. You would meet a 50-year-old, especially with Gambians. You would meet a 50-year-old man or woman, cannot even make decisions on their own. They are telling you, I have to ask my father. Or I have to ask my mother. So those same people want to become your leader, and you are going to send them to go sit in front of white people that they see as their gods, and you expect something good to come out of that? You must be kidding me. That's not how it works, people. So the dreams of Pan-Africanism, I don't know if it would ever come true. It only has a strong root in America and in Europe. Places where black people were and continued to be oppressed based on our African nature, our skin color, or for whatever reason it may be. Because, just like tribalists like to deny tribalism, people that practice colorism also tend to deny it. They don't accept it. So I'm not here to preach to you to try to change your ways, but I'm just here to point out the realities of life. What is out there right in front of us. We cannot deny it. Just like if politicians lie, we call them out on their lies. You cannot be upset if your political leader lies and then people call them out on that. You're telling us, oh, he is a father, he is a mother. Well, do you know how many fathers and mothers that particular politicians probably just lied to and disrespected, because that's what lying is. Because if you're telling me that, like for example, I'll give you an example. Right now I'm here talking to a general public, to the audience. So, and me doing this, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like nobody has the right to disagree with me. Wouldn't you think I'm an insane person? You cannot come and talk to the public and not expect somebody there to disagree with what you're saying. And also, there's going to be people who would remember, pretty much every word you say. Pretty much. But, you come back, you repeat, you pull out everything that they said, then they are mad at you. Now you are the problem. They talk about tribes. And you're like, okay, these people are basing this on that. And you call it out, you are the bad person. That's not reality. So, us as Africans, we have to accept reality, accept responsibility. Stop looking at white people like our gods. I'm not talking about myself. Those of you that do it. It's a subconscious thing. And when I say gods, it doesn't mean that. You don't have to necessarily tell somebody, oh, you are my God. That's not how it works. But if you cannot solve your own problems without consulting a certain group of beings, human beings, or gods, as some would put it, because that means you are saying these people are smarter than you. You look at the conflicts in Africa, like Kagame gave the example of Sudan. It is Europeans and Americans who are in charge of trying to solve these problems. Try to solve it. Because let's be frank, people. Do you believe they really want to stop these people from killing each other? Like Africans are killing each other and there's tons of wealth under the soil. You do the math. What makes you think they would want us to do better for ourselves? They might as well want to, because in the case of Rwanda, they receive aid and they put the aid to good use. But again, maybe they don't believe that we have what it takes to be independent, to be free. Because, you have countries in Africa every year celebrating independence. To me, that's a joke. How can you celebrate independence when you are not free? African nations are not free, per se. Because if you are still asking for permission from your so-called colonial masters, then you are not free. Your nation is not free. They shouldn't be celebrating the so-called independent. But hey, if it's a big occasion for many, great. Or maybe Africans, we should be thinking about the second coming. What I mean by that, the second independence, where we free our minds from neocolonialism, from religion. And when I say religion, I'm talking about the controlling part of religion. The controlling part of it. There are things part of religion that correlates, and matches, what a civilized society should be like. We cannot just totally ignore those. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm talking about excessively, being excessive to a point where Africans we no longer even know who we are. Most people that attempt to come to my timeline, usually when I post something about, let's say, politics, when they attempt to debate me, because it's not a debate, generally they don't really make sense. They would quote me what white people are doing in England. So if white people are doing this in England, so therefore we should do it too. Hey, white people in England also believe that they should be working hard. They shouldn't be relying on their government. They should come up with their own ideas and be free individuals, not beg other people. Go out there and get what they need to get. And when I say not beg, I'm not speaking of just individuals, people. I'm speaking about generality, people as a collective force, because I'm not speaking to just one person. One person cannot effect a change. It has to be, the collective coming together. So these societies that we look at, I'm not saying we're wrong, for looking at other societies. We can look at other societies for the things that we admire and try to, be better in that area. But no, us Africans, our people are just proud to go beg Europeans for what they've already built. This is what Paul Kagame was saying, because our leaders are so careful about speaking their mind. Because when they speak their minds, they think, oh, these people are no longer gonna help us out. So it stops them. When a person is not free, they cannot do what they want. I'll give you an example. Like, for example, North Korea, Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un, he is independent. He is free. He doesn't ask anybody. He doesn't ask the United States if he can test his missiles or whatsoever. He does what he wants to do. In fact, when they tell him not to do it, it makes him even want to do it more. And nothing comes out of it. We've all seen it time and time again. So those people are independent. Not the people. The leader is independent. Right? I'm not saying our leaders should be like Kim Jong-un. But that mindset of independence, that should be there. We should want our leaders to have that. To have pride in our nation. Be patriotic. Because it begins at home. Like, let's say if Rwandans now want to transport their mindset, because we're now seeing results. We're seeing tangible results. If they want to transport, their mindset around Africa, it would make sense for them to be able to do it, because we've seen examples. But there are many other people from other African nations. They cannot transport, we cannot distribute the political ideas or economic ideas we have in our countries, because they are not progressive. They are not even helping people. From over 50 years, many African countries, by the way, have been out of direct European rule. It's been over 50 years now, and no progress. I'm talking about, because people like to talk about progress in terms of buildings, cars, whatever. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about the mindset, the education, the human capital. Because, West Africa, the mindset, when it comes to especially having children, many of the parents, it's like West Africa is like a baby factory. People just, majority just want to produce the babies and not even think about what opportunities would be out there for the kids, and they didn't even create those opportunities. So those kids grow up, they start pointing fingers at government, and then the cycle of poverty continues, right? But we bring men with ideas like Mr. Kagame, who is not speaking along religious lines, who is not speaking along tribal lines. He's speaking about progress, tangible things that people can actually see. See, if most of Africa can achieve what Mr. Kagame is bringing to his people as far as enlightening them, education, maybe, just maybe, that would eventually help bring Africans to finally agreeing onto something. Because when people are enlightened, their minds are open, it's easier to understand one another. But the way I see things today, all the factors that I have mentioned are definitely roadblocks. We can agree to disagree, but this is how I see it. Since nobody called in again today, I'm gonna actually, it's been an hour 25 minutes. That's about how much time I was looking to spend with you guys here. So I'm about to end the program here. Make sure you show up tomorrow again, or whenever I'm in line. Share this video with your friends, and whatever is on your mind, you can share in the comment section. You don't have to necessarily agree with me or Mr. Paul Kagame, just like few of you are disagreeing with him here. I mean, one person, not few of you. So this is the end of it. I hope you guys enjoyed the program as much as I did myself.
Well, now well, none of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Children have to go back to the roots, yeah. None of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Children have to go back to the roots. I'm telling you now, the truth, telling you, yeah, the truth. You have to go back to the roots, go to the roots. Yeah, man, this is Benjamin out of the Smiling Coast, West Africa, Gambia, representing representing for the one and only Abu, the big man you don't know, the Soninke warrior, the man that brings the truth, Soninke warrior, the sign of enlightenment, the Soninke warrior, the righteous and the true African. Abu, reveal the truth to them, you know, no matter how them try run from it, because none of them can hide from the truth, yeah. Yes, we have to dig back the roots, yeah. Fire!